Hello everyone, welcome to Dr. Fluffy, and today in Cleaning the Litter Box we're going to get a bit away from the tragedies that have been going on in the world with political violence and taking a look again at some non-binary bullshit. So let's put some better music, shall we? Much more appropriate to take a look at humanity degrading into a joke.
Just because I may present more femme doesn't mean that I'm any less they them.
What makes you less they them is the fact that you are one person and they them is plural. Therefore it's multiple people. They them does not imply gender, but you have to have one of two genders because there's only two genders. So therefore it does not apply.
You know what, that thing where you're eating a meal but you're not really eating a meal, you're just kind of picking at food on the counter. My family and I were doing that one night and I just kind of looked at them and said, hey guys, I'm non-binary. I don't have a gender.
Well, your family should have gotten up and slapped you, because there's no such thing as not having a gender. Because gender is not something that you choose not to have, it's something that is determined by your biology, it's determined by your chromosomes. Therefore, you cannot choose not to have one. You have either the female one and the male one. It's that simple.
In my opinion, gender is a universe. It is a broad spectrum of planets and stars and sky that truly cannot be contained into a binary.
What fucking drugs are you smoking? Your opinion does not determine gender. What determines gender is biology. I'm sorry to tell you, biology tells you that gender is not a universe, it's not nothing like that. Gender is a division between two categories that is that way in all mammal species, that is related with sexual reproduction. It's XX and XY chromosomes is determined exclusively by chromosomes. Then what you have is characteristics that we use to identify the chromosomes patterns, but it's the chromosomes that determine gender. It's that simple. It's not rocket science, it's not the universe, it's biology.
My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and that's a non-negotiable. And they were all kind of like, okay.
I'm sorry to tell you, but pronouns are not your choice. They are other people's tools to describe you and to describe your biology. So when I look at you and call you she, I'm observing that you are a female, that you have XX chromosomes. Why can I observe that? Because all your morphology tells me that you are that. Therefore, I'm going to call you she. If you tell me, oh, my pronouns are they and then, it's not negotiable, I'll tell you, I don't care. I just don't care because I can observe that you're a female. Therefore, I'll call you female. Period.
I think one of the main reasons pronouns are so important is because other than our name, it's one of the main ways that people identify and call us.
Yes, it's the way people identify your sex, your biological sex. That is the same thing as gender, by the way. Gender is the result of biological sex. So, when they are identifying your pronouns, they are identifying if you're a male or a female, if you have a dick, if you have a vagina, if you have XX chromosomes or XY chromosomes. That's it. They are not identifying your personality traits. They are identifying your biological sex. Therefore, you have no say in the matter.
My pronouns are personally very important to me. Growing up, enculturated into kind of a system that really subscribes to toxic masculinity, I was always uncomfortable with being called dude, what's up, man. I was so bad at dapping people up, how guys do that whole like that thing. I was so bad at that, and it just like I felt very alienated every time someone would do that to me.
Dude, your failures in society does not justify people not calling you by the correct pronoun. Doesn't justify making up a pronoun just because you don't feel manly enough. I'm telling you to tell you, toxic masculinity does not exist. There exists masculinity, and then exists people who unfortunately are not very masculine. Doesn't mean they are not men, because they are men. If they have XY chromosomes, they are men. And by the way, we're not talking about gender dysphoria here. We're not talking about people that have that condition where the brain works in the way that adopt the opposite sex. We're talking about these people that invent a non-binary pronoun. These are not trans people. These are just people that think they are failures in their own gender, so they want to make up gender, so they think, oh, I agender. That doesn't exist. You're either a male or a female, even if you are a poor excuse of a male or a poor excuse of a female.
So when someone identifies with a pronoun, they're essentially taking their little piece of that broad universe and identifying with that. And so in using their correct pronouns, we're validating that yes, you are right in your identity and you are important and we're respecting you.
The part of your identity that is unique is not gender. Gender, you have again two categories, only two categories. So there's pronouns. Then you have personalities. That's what's unique about you. That's what people need to respect, not your fake genders. People should not validate delusions, and believing there's more than two genders is a delusion. It's a lie. People should not validate lies.
Coming into terms with my gender queer identity has been one of the most challenging but also rewarding things that I've done.
Yes, you haven't done anything worthy with your life then.
Laverne Cox kind of famously said, misgendering a trans person is an act of violence. And it is. It's an act of psychological violence. It's a denial of somebody's personhood and a complete refusal to acknowledge their identity, whether intentional or not.
And that person is wrong. It's not an act of violence. Violence implies physical force. I don't care what you try to redefine violence as. Also, I do not care about your feelings. I care about reality. And what your supposed pronouns are is an attack on reality. It's an attack on science. Your identity does not change the fact that there are only two genders. Two freaking genders.
And so it is something that is entirely wrapped around our everyday lives. So just walking into a restaurant and hearing someone say she, like, will happen within 2 seconds of me entering, which doesn't happen about any of my other identities. They're not gonna be like, oh, you straight person, you know, like that doesn't happen. But automatically someone will make assumptions about gender which translate into pronouns, which mean that I will hear over and over again people saying something about my identity which is false.
No, it's not false. It's incredibly true. Do you want me to test it? So, if I go to a machine and take a blood sample, do a DNA test, am I going to see XX chromosomes? Am I? If I am, then that person in a restaurant has all the fucking right of calling you a she, because you are a she, because you have XX fucking chromosomes.
I think a lot of people associate expression with identity, and sometimes that's not the case. You know, oftentimes I'm in situations where I'm not the most safe being able to express my gender identity, and in those cases, even in those instances where I'm wearing basketball shorts or sneakers, you can't take my gender identity away from me because that's mine and not yours.
When people are calling you by he, they are not calling you by any gender identity or a gender expression. Those terms are made up. They are calling you by your true gender, by your XY chromosomes pattern, by your morphology. Are you a male or are you a female? That's the only two options that you have. That's fucking biology.
So many different options for who you are and how to define that. So when someone chooses a personal pronoun that they identify with, using that pronoun is a form of respect and a form of validation that yes, this is your rightful identity and I will respect that.
But again, who you are is not a subjective thing in terms of gender, because gender again is a biological determined thing. And that's what translates into pronouns. Your personality, your tastes, what you intake from the environment has nothing to do with your pronouns. It has nothing to do with your gender. Those are two things you have no control over. Those two things are determined from the moment you're conceived. And by the way, respect is something that is earned. It's not something that is given or is demanded of people. No one needs to respect or should respect denial of reality.
And I know personally when I get misgendered, by strangers it's one thing, but it's especially painful when it's people who are close to you. So when my parents misgender me, it's a knife in my heart because they're the people whose opinions matter more to me than anybody else's.
That's called good parenting. Your parents should not allow and encourage delusions from their children because they understand that that is going to have negative consequences in their lives. So yeah, a good parent will not let their child that they birthed and they raised call themselves they and them and I'm agendered. No, you got out of my vagina. I looked at you. I saw your penis. I saw your vagina. A parent normally can tell the sex of their child because they watch them grow. They gave them enough baths to understand what organs, what sexual organs are down there. So yeah, I'm sorry, but it's not your parents that are misgendering you. You are the one making up genders.
And not knowing how to combat it. It is constant and it is such a prevalent part of our society that being misgendered happens countless times in a day, and that builds up really quickly, and it can really be difficult for a person to hear over and over again because it invalidates your identity over and over and over again.
If you're going to insist in living in a delusion, that's going to happen more and more and more because people are not going to deny reality because of you. People know there are only two genders. People understand that morphology will translate the DNA code, the XX and XY. So people look at you, they will identify certain characteristics that match the morphology of one of each genders, and they will call you by the correct pronoun. So understand that your identity, your personality has nothing to do with your gender.
Pronouns are important because they are the smallest and easiest way that you can acknowledge somebody's identity.
No, they are not. They are the simplest way to identify someone's sex. Sex! Freaking biological sex!
And I also don't like that people call them their preferred pronouns because it's also not a preference. It's who they are. You need to use those pronouns. It's literally an extension of my arm or my leg. It's just as a part of me as a vital organ. My identity, although you can't see it, still needs to be validated just as much as you would validate the fact that I have 5 fingers or 5 toes.
In one thing we do agree, it's not a preference. You have no choice in the matter. It's determined by your chromosomes, by your biology. So it's actually, yes, an extension of yourself, a biology, and therefore it's determined by biology, by your chromosomes. XX, XY, you have no choice in the matter, so you cannot make up new pronouns and then say that, oh no, these are my real pronouns. No, it's biology that determines your pronouns, is the XX and XY chromosome patterns. And again, intersex, I have several videos on intersex. Intersex does not change to third gender. Intersex just makes it harder to identify the gender, but it's completely possible through DNA means. Now please let's pause just a minute to understand it. Why were all of these people like this? Well, I'm going to tell you maybe my idea. These are all social outcasts, people who failed in life. Do you understand why they make up all of these things? It's for attention. They try to use the trans label used for gender dysphoria patients to get special rights, to pretend they're all a victim class too, but they are not victims. They have nothing to do with real trans people. As always, tell me your opinion in the comment section below. Share this video if you like the analysis. Leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't. In the end of the day, stay